in your testimony, you said when demand is high and supply is limited, prices go up. To Senator Bucco's comment, I think we get the economics, makes sense. Why is supply limited?
So I think there's two parts of that. The perception of a limited supply, which is the PJM market rules I referred to, and the limited supply based on the demand, right? It's the limited supply relative to the amount of electricity that we need. And so, part of that is, as we talked about, is data centers. The projections for load growth have changed drastically. And so we need more supply to meet that demand.
Right, but why is supply limited? And when did it become limited?
I would have to look at when the projections changed, but I think about 2 years ago, PJM's projections had a drastic change for, just the next 5 years.
Okay, so at one point, you mentioned Pennsylvania and Governor Shapiro. At one point, didn't we do the same thing? Like, didn't we have enough supply in the state to cover us without having to go out of state?
I don't know of a time where we were neutral, where we had enough electricity to cover all of the needs at all times.
Okay, you brought up Oyster Creek before. By the numbers I'm looking at, Salem and Hope Creek represent about 27 terawatts of energy and roughly 40%, I think you even said that, 40%
yep.
Supplied to the state, right? My understanding is Oyster Creek was doing about 6 terawatts when it was decommissioned. That, in addition to the 5 plants that were taken offline in that same time period, represents somewhere about 15 terawatts of energy that we lost in that time period since 2018, we're talking about, right? You're talking about projects that bring in not terawatts, not gigawatts, but megawatts, right? So we talked about this, as Assemblyman Bailey mentioned, in a committee where we need terawatts. Why are we focusing on energy supply that brings in not terawatts or gigawatts, but megawatts? Even battery storage, which we just heard about, which I'm all for. I just don't want the ratepayers to pay for it. But I'm all for pursuing that kind of alternative source of supply. But even at their best estimate, it was going to give us 1 gigawatt, right? So that means we need 1,000 of them to get 1 terawatt, right? If we're short 15, best estimate, we need 15,000 of them. So why are we focused on supply options that are bringing in not even close to what we need to address the problem?
So we're focusing on a lot of supply options, and just to be clear, we have doubled the amount of solar during the last 7 years, and that is in gigawatts, right? 2.4, I think, gigawatts in the last 7 years. In addition, the amount of offshore wind slated to come online by 2032 was another 4, I think, gigawatts. So we have looked at gigawatts as well. For solar and storage, they're smaller projects, so they're distributed, but together they are gigawatts. It's not, they're just distributed across the state.
Right, but the third highest one, I'm looking at the list of generation plants in the whole state, right? Third highest on the list is the Linden Cogen plant. It's a natural gas plant, brings in 5.6 terawatts of energy. Again, why aren't we focused on natural gas and nuclear, which I got to question the defending the administration on nuclear. I don't know how anyone believes that. And I don't know what policies have been enacted or promoted that would support that statement, right? But sticking with natural gas for a second, you got a whole list of natural gas generation plants on here doing terawatts or at least mega amounts of gigawatts. Why aren't we going all in on that to address this problem?
So I think there might be some confusion between the amount of electricity that's being produced. When we talk about we'll call it the nameplate capacity, right? So if a power plant is 1,000 megawatts, right? That's the capacity. The amount of electricity that's being produced is in terawatts. But the Salem and Hope Creek are 3,800 megawatts of nameplate capacity. So there's a bit of a difference there.
Well, I'm talking on an annual basis, right? So
yes.
annual,
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
calculates over time, right? Salem and Hope Creek, the capacity, the nameplate capacity, the amount that they could produce at a given time is 3,800 megawatts. So the solar, that we have done in this state in the last 7 years is 2.5 gigawatts of capacity that we have added to the grid. And I think to your point with the question about nuclear, I mean, this administration is the one that passed with your support in the legislature, the ZEC law. The BPU implements it. I have been working on it since 2018.
Yeah, I would argue reluctantly, but that was after Oyster Creek was closed in 2018 first.
Yeah, so-
Right?
Wait,
And
yeah.
we lost
Yeah.
that capacity.
Yes,
right?
but Oyster Creek they closed in 2018. The starting of the closure was not in 2018. Closing a nuclear plant takes a significant amount of time.
Yeah, well, allowing it didn't, right?